engineering. My name is Goran, and I'm an experienced cybersecurity professional with about 7 years of experience. In this workshop, we will discuss what social engineering really is, how it has evolved over the years, and its importance in today's digital world. We will also dive into the psychology of social engineering attacks and how technology has enabled attackers to carry out sophisticated attacks. Okay, so let's start. Social engineering is the use of psychological manipulation to trick individuals into revealing confidential information or performing actions that will put an organization at risk. It basically involves using tactics such as building trust, creating urgency, and exploiting emotions to manipulate victims into giving away sensitive information or taking actions that are harmful to the organization itself. Social engineering has been around for centuries, but with the advancement of technology, it has evolved into more sophisticated attacks. Basically, in the past, social engineers had to rely on phone calls and face-to-face interactions to trick victims. However, with the rise of internet and mobile devices, attackers now have more tools at their disposal to carry out these sophisticated attacks. Understanding social engineering is really crucial to everyone, especially for individuals who work in sensitive industries, such as, for example, finance or healthcare. By understanding how social engineering works, individuals can take steps to protect themselves and their organizations from these attacks. Now, here on the right side, we can see a chart that describes how many attacks are happening. So basically, comparison of top 5 crime types. First is social engineering, and then we have other ones. From this chart alone, you can see how common these types of attacks really are. Okay, let's move on. Basically, the social engineering attacks rely on psychological tactics and techniques. Let me just see who's waiting. Okay. Okay, let's continue. Basically, where was I? Okay. Social engineering has been around for centuries, but with the advancement, give me just a second to see what's going on here. I don't know if I need to allow them into the meeting or what. Just a second. Okay, let's continue. Where was I? Yeah, basically, social engineering attacks rely on psychological tactics and techniques to trick victims. These tactics include building trust, creating urgency, and exploiting emotions. I see that this will happen a lot. By understanding the psychology behind these attacks, individuals can be better equipped to recognize and defend against them. Basically, building trust, creating urgency, exploiting emotions, those are most common psychological tactics that are used in social engineering attacks. Basically, they help attackers manipulate victims into giving away sensitive information or taking actions that are harmful to the individual itself. Technology has greatly enabled attackers to carry out sophisticated social engineering attacks. For example, phishing attacks, phishing scams, vishing, smishing, and baiting are all forms of social engineering attacks that rely on technology to trick victims. Okay, in the next few slides, all right, this will be. In the next few slides, we'll be discussing these types of attacks in more detail. For now, we'll just cover them generally. Basically, with the rise of internet and mobile devices, attackers now have more tools at their disposal to carry out sophisticated social engineering attacks. For example, phishing scams can be sent via email or text messages. Phishing attacks can be carried out over phone, and smishing attacks can be carried out through SMS messages. The point is that these attacks can be made to look very convincing, making it very difficult for victims to recognize them. Okay. Now moving on. Let's talk about different types of social engineering attacks. The most common types of social engineering attacks include phishing, pretexting, baiting, tailgating, and vishing. Here on the right side, you can see all the social engineering attacks, but we'll be covering just these 5 because of the sake of the time. So let's start with phishing. Phishing is one of the most common types of social engineering attacks. It involves the attacker posing as a trustworthy entity and basically tricking the victim into providing sensitive information, such as login credentials or credit card details. Baiting. Baiting is another type of social engineering attack where the attacker leaves a physical item, such as USB drive in a public place with a hope that someone will pick it up and insert it into their computer, thereby infecting it with malware. Next social engineering attack that will be covered is pretexting. That basically involves the attacker creating a false scenario or background to deceive the victim into divulging sensitive information. The attacker may pose as a bank employee or a government official to obtain personal and private information from the individual. Next attack that we'll cover is tailgating, also known as piggybacking. It's a type of social engineering attack where the attacker follows an authorized person into a secure area without proper authentication. The attacker exploits the trust and complacency of an authorized person to gain access to sensitive information. And last one is vishing. That's basically a form of social engineering attack that involves the use of voice technology, such as telephone or voice over IP, to deceive the victim into revealing sensitive information. Basically, the attacker may pose as a bank employee or a government official and trick the victim into providing personal information. All right. We'll be moving on. Next topic is researching your target. As a cybersecurity professional, it's crucial to know your target's behavior, preferences, and habits in order to better protect against social engineering attacks. Anything that you do in cybersecurity, if it's either protecting yourself or if it's finding vulnerabilities in the organization itself, first thing that you will do is research. I cannot emphasize the importance of research enough, but I'll cover some techniques. So, one of the most popular and effective techniques is OSINT, basically open source intelligence. That's a powerful tool that can provide valuable insights into your target's personal and professional life. For example, you can use OSINT to gather information about your target's job title, education, hobbies, and interests. OSINT involves gathering information from publicly available sources, such as social websites, social media websites, and databases. For example, if you are applying to a job in a big company, it's really possible that the HR department or the IT department in that company will use the open source intelligence themselves and check out all of your social media profiles. And basically, they will do that by searching your email. So if you are using an email that's on your resume or on your CV that is connected to your social media accounts, they will basically have a full insight to your whole life. So that's why it's smart to create a new email account to not give out too much information about yourself. Next one is, it's also very important to check links before clicking on them. Why? To avoid man-in-the-middle attacks. Basically, in a man-in-the-middle attack, an attacker intercepts the communication between two parties and can steal sensitive information or manipulate the data being transmitted. By checking links before clicking on them, you can protect yourself against these kind of attacks, and you can avoid falling victim to social engineering attacks that use these tactics. So it can be a more complex type of social engineering attack that just uses man in the middle as an entry point. These are common type of social engineering attacks, and they can be pretty difficult to detect. Basically, to avoid man-in-the-middle attacks, it's important to check links before clicking on them to ensure that you're not being redirected to a fake website. You can also use encryption to protect your data and prevent this type of attacks. Also, it's very important to be wary of the links that you are sending. It's totally possible for some of your friends that are consistently sending you links to be compromised and for the attacker to send corrupt links through them, basically. And then when you click on the link, you're also compromised. And if it's some kind of serious malware, it can continue sending all of your trusted contacts the same link, and that's how rats usually operate. Now, the next thing that I want to cover is today's day and age, AI. AI is very prominent, and how does social engineering interact with it? Artificial intelligence is being used in many different ways in social engineering attacks, from phishing and impersonation to misinformation and others. AI-powered tools are making it easier for attackers to trick people into giving away sensitive information. The impact of AI-powered tools in the field of social engineering is significant, and it should not be underestimated. I think that these tools allow attackers to automate many of the processes involved in phishing and impersonation, making them more efficient and effective. Here on the right, you can see some of the common hacking attacks, types of hacking attacks, and how they compare. We'll be talking more about, we talked about man-in-the-middle attacks and watering hole. That's also a type of social engineering attack that we'll be talking later on. But as you can see here, phishing is one of the highest ones. All right. Email phishing scams. These are one of the most common types of social engineering attacks. You'll probably know about them. In one point of your life, you probably got a phishing email that was sent from an unreliable source. We can see on the right how it looks. Basically, there are common form of social engineering attack that trick uneducated people into giving away sensitive information. Basically, they often involve fake emails that appear to be from legitimate organizations. Basically, these emails are designed to look like they're coming from a trusted source, such as a bank or an online retailer, and they often contain a message that tries to panic or intimidate the recipient into taking action. We'll talk more about some red flags that you need to look out for to protect yourself against these kinds of attacks. Basically, the goal of these phishing emails is to trick people into revealing sensitive information, such as login credentials, credit card numbers, and all other types of personal information. They are often very sophisticated and can be very convincing. Pretty self-explanatory. Yeah, I think I covered everything now. We'll be moving on. Next one is impersonation scams. Impersonation scams are another common form of social engineering where attackers impersonate trusted organization or individual in order to gain access to sensitive information. Now, they are different from email phishing scams because they are more complex and more sophisticated. And email phishing is just a way of gaining an entry point to your life. Impersonation is much more complex. For example, an attacker may send you an email pretending to be also from a bank or asking the recipient to confirm some of your account information or whatever. And this email will contain a link that takes the recipient to a fake page. Basically, that will be a fake login page where they're asked to enter their login credentials. When you give away your login credentials, attackers will then use that information further, and basically that's why this is an impersonation scam. It's important to remember that legitimate organizations will probably never ask for sensitive information, such as your passwords or credit card numbers over email or phone. You need to always be cautious of unsolicited requests for an information and never reveal sensitive information unless you are sure that the request is legitimate. We'll talk more about that later. Pretexting. Now let's take a look at pretexting scams. Pretexting is a form of social engineering where the attackers uses a pretext or a false context to trick the victim into revealing sensitive information. For example, an attacker may call a victim pretending to be a representative from a trusted organization and claim that they need access to sensitive information in order to fix a technical issue. The victim may then reveal their login credentials or other sensitive information without realizing that they are being tricked. The fraudster will then gain valuable information from their victim and often use it maliciously. What's important here to remember? Well, of course, it's important to always verify the identity of someone who is asking for sensitive information and to never reveal information unless you're absolutely certain that the request is legitimate. Okay. Now we'll look at some of the top hacking attacks that happened in our history that affected big corporations or big organizations that used social engineering as an entry point or as a starting point. One such case is RSI SecurID phishing attack that happened in 2011. Basically, attackers sent a phishing email to RSA employees with a spoofed address and an attachment that contained a zero-day flash exploit. Now, zero-day vulnerability at its core is a flaw. It's an unknown exploit in the wild that exposes a vulnerability in a software or hardware and can create complicated problems well before anyone realizes something is wrong. In fact, a zero-day exploit leaves no opportunity for detection at the beginning. Basically, that is why is it called zero-day, because it has been discovered by the attacker itself. Basically, then exploit installed a backdoor on the employees' work machines, leading to a theft of information about their two-factor authentication fobs. Here we can see a graph that shows how this happened. Like they tried with this stolen information to attempt to breach the network of defense contractor Lockheed Martin, but later they had agreed to replace most of their distributed security tokens, and that's why no big damage happened. But again, they had managed to enter into a very dangerous zone and to threaten some of the big defense contractors, such as Lockheed Martin. Now we can see how we would prevent this type of attack, and basically that is to train employees train employees to recognize phishing emails, and to basically not open attachments from any unknown or suspicious sources. Now, the next type of attack that we'll be talking is ubiquity network scam. Basically, it started by accounting department receiving an email perpetrating to be from a company's Hong Kong subsidiary with instructions to transfer funds to overseas account. Basically, the hackers got away with around $39 million. In total, they have gained $47 million, but the company was able to recover around $8 million, which left them at around $39 million profit. We can also see the diagram of how this operation worked. And here we can see how to prevent it. Basically, verification of payment instructions and vendor changes through a secondary channel before making transfers. That's, in today's day and age, pretty self-explanatory. There needs to be a verification of everything. This happened in 2015. Today we have much more different technology. Like we can have an AI that will do a 15-minute phone call and that will basically try to phish someone over the phone, called phishing. But more on that later. Next attack that we are looking up for is Department of Labor watering hole attack. Basically, we can see how a watering hole technique works. Basically, attacker will inject an exploit into a selected sites, often visited by targeted victims. When the target enters the website, exploit will drop on their vulnerable systems. Using the dropped malware, the attacker may now initiate his malicious activities, and attacker gathers initial intelligence to determine which site to target. Basically, in 2013, a server at the US Department of Labor was hacked and used to host malware and redirect visitors to a site that installed a remote access Trojan using a zero-day Internet Explorer exploit. We already covered what a zero-day is. Basically, the infected pages were related to a toxic nuclear substance overseen by the Department of Energy, and basically targeted DOL and DOE employees with access to sensitive nuclear data. Basically, attackers are still remaining unknown. How can we prevent this type of attack? Basically, to train employees to avoid suspicious websites and, of course, keeping software and security updates up to date. Now, one interesting attack that happened was a Sony Pictures hack in 2014. North Korean hacker group targeted Sony Pictures in a phishing attack ahead of the release of the movie called The Interview, probably seen it. That's basically a comedy about assassinating the supreme leader of North Korea. This is what was left on the Sony's website. Basically, hackers were likely part of a government-led effort aimed at getting the studio to pull the movie. Damage that Sony suffered were substantial financial losses and had several other pictures and employee data leaked online. How could you prevent this type of attack is employee training on phishing email recognition, regular backups and data encryption, and implementation of multi-factor authentication. All right, and of course, no list of data breaches would be complete if we didn't have our favorite, Yahoo. In 2013, Yahoo suffered a massive breach where 3 billion customer accounts were compromised. Now, let that sink in, 3 billion. Basically, the breach was caused by a spear phishing attack on a semi-privileged engineer at the company. After gaining access to the data, attackers sold it on the dark web and likely used it for further attacks. Now, fun fact that this breach went unnoticed for 4 years and only came to light in 2017. And also one more fun fact is that initially Yahoo reported that only 500 million accounts were compromised, which was 6 times less than the real number. As you can see here, with 500 million accounts compromised, it's still one of the biggest data breaches that exist. But when you put the real number on it, I don't think it will ever be overthrown, basically. Also the prevention, as you can see how important is employee training on phishing email recognition, regular backups and data encryption, and implementation of multi-factor authentication. Now we'll be talking about corporate security and social engineering. Basically, social engineering is a ever-growing threat, and it's crucial that corporations take proactive measures to defend against these kind of attacks. Corporations also have a role to protect their own employees against these kind of attacks. Basically, by implementing security awareness programs and policies, corporations can help educate their employees and customers on how to identify and avoid these kind of attacks. This can include regular training sessions, security bulletins, and simulations. Those are the best ones with the highest rate. Basically, corporations can implement security protocols and procedures for verifying identity and handling sensitive information. This can include stuff like two-factor authentication, encryption, and secure storage of sensitive information. By taking some proactive steps, corporations can help protect their employees and customers from social engineering attacks and ensure that sensitive information remains secure. We can also see here the social engineering life cycle from investigation, hook, play, and exit. It's pretty self-explanatory. I won't cover it that much. It's also like interesting to see that one of the most important steps on this cycle is the exit fill. Basically, attacker would remove all traces of malware, cover all of their tracks, and bring their charade to a natural end for you to not suspect anything. That's what's really scariest thing of all. How can you defend against social engineering attacks? What kind of options do corporations have against defending against social engineering attacks? The first step in defending against these kind of attacks is to educate employees on the tactics that attackers use and how to identify them. As I said before, this can include something like training sessions or phishing simulations. It's also important to establish security protocols and procedures for verifying identity and handling sensitive information. As mentioned before, this can include two-factor authentication, encryption, and secure storage of sensitive information. In addition to these measures, corporations can also implement technology solutions such as spam filters and firewalls to help block and prevent social engineering attacks. And finally, it's important to regularly review and update security policies to keep up with the latest threats. This will help ensure that corporations remain one step ahead of the attackers and can continue to protect their employees and customers from social engineering attacks. How can you identify and avoid social engineering attacks? Basically, the social engineering attacks are becoming increasingly common and more sophisticated, so they are harder to notice and to react to. And what's important is that we are aware of these tactics and we take necessary steps to protect ourselves and our personal and professional information. Now, the first thing to be aware of is unsolicited phone calls, emails, or messages. If you receive a call, email, or message from an unknown sender, be cautious before providing any information. In some cases, scammers may try to impersonate a trusted organization to gain access to your personal or sensitive information. We have talked about that before at the beginning of this workshop. Second step in avoiding being attacked by social engineering attack is to verify the identity of the sender before clicking on any links. As I said before, this is particularly important in the case of email phishing scams. Basically, the best advice is if you receive an email that appears to be an email that you receive, basically, it's best to take the time to verify the sender's identity. And you have a lot of options here. You can do a quick research on the Google to find out. Best thing is always to call the organization directly and to see if they really sent you that email. And there are some other options like verifying the DNS servers through which the email was sent, but more on that later on. Now, it's also important to look for signs of urgency or pressure tactics. Basically, those are your red flags. For example, scammers may try to convince you to act quickly by claiming that there is some kind of a limited time to take advantage of an opportunity or that there is an immediate threat to your account. You need to be wary of these tactics and take time to verify any information before acting. So no rushing at all. It's also important to keep your personal information confidential and not to share it with anyone unless you are sure of their identity and the purpose for which the information is being requested. This includes personal and sensitive information such as password, financial information, and your government issued information. And last step to identify and avoid social engineering attacks is education. Education is key. You need to stay informed about the latest tactics that are used by perpetrators and share this information with people that are connected to you, such as family, friends, and colleagues, to make sure that they are also safe. Okay, now we'll cover the cybersecurity course and some career opportunities. Now, this is only a workshop, and it's free. Basically, we covered social engineering, attacks, and how it all happens, and how you can defend against it. Now, we also at Oculus Tech have a cybersecurity course, introductory course, that lasts only 10 hours. Basically, the price is also funny. It's, I think, less than $10. But the information in that course can provide very useful. As you might know, cybersecurity is one of the most important industries right now in tech because of the ever-growing threat and all of the new technologies that we now have, such as AI. Like, for example, there are voice AIs right now that can basically, you can write a script and AI would read that text out loud. And you can basically set it up and to call like a list of hundreds of people and to try different tactics. And the scary part is that it's automated. And that's why basically like you can just, attackers can basically set that up and like forget about it or set up another one. And basically that's a very easy way to lose all of your information. We also offer complete courses if you really want to become a cybersecurity professional. What's the point of this 10-hour course? Basically, the point is not to earn money because of its funny price. To be exact, I think it's less than 1,000 Indian rupees, which is less than 10 US dollars. The point of that 10-hour course is to educate as much people as possible, to take cybersecurity seriously, and to find people who are really passionate about cybersecurity, because current need for cybersecurity experts is ever growing, and I don't think in the next couple of years it will stop. It will just be needed more and more. I have put here the pyramid of the entry, mid, and senior level cybersecurity positions that are available. I didn't bother putting any available jobs right now because there is a sea of them, and you can basically take any of these entry-level positions, or probably mid-level, I don't think so, but like entry-level positions. You can take any of them and see what are your responsibilities in these kind of positions. Most 90% of them are remote work, and the pay is from, I would say, 70 from 70k to from 70k a year to 150k a year. Of course, if you move up the ladder, it can be up to 200 to 150k a year. All right. This is just a quick overview of the cybersecurity 10-hour course. I have broken it down into 10 classes. Each class is 1 hour. So like we would discuss and decide what would be the best time to hold these classes. But like, for example, we could hold it 1 hour every weekend. So Saturday 1 hour, Sunday 1 hour. That will basically give us around 5 weeks to complete the whole course. And the requirements for this course would be basically your requirements would be to know any kind of scripting language, Python, Bash, Golang also works, and to have some fundamental knowledge about the cybersecurity, importance of cybersecurity, and I think there are not as much prerequisites as needed. As you can see, the first class will be an introduction to cybersecurity, basically similar to this workshop that we had here. Next class would be network security, which is crucial to any cybersecurity professional. Then we would have web security, basically how to defend your websites or anything that is on the web. Endpoint security, cybercrime and incident response, cryptography, advanced network security, advanced web security, advanced endpoint security, and cybersecurity in practice. Each one of these classes will have a interactive project that we will be working on, which will allow you to amass even more experience. And I think that would be all. Yeah, this is conclusion. As we have seen, the world of cybersecurity is becoming an increasingly complex, and social engineering is a growing threat that all of us need to be aware of. From impersonation scams to phishing emails, these attacks can trick even the most savvy individuals into giving away sensitive information. However, by educating ourselves and our employees, implementing security policies and protocols, and being vigilant about unsolicited requests for information, we can easily defend against these kind of attacks and protect ourselves, our organizations, our customers, and everyone else. As I said before, the field of cybersecurity is also an exciting area of growth, with many opportunities for those who are passionate about technology and security. I personally encourage all of you to continue to stay informed and take an active role in protecting yourself and others from social engineering attacks. And I think that this concludes our presentation for today. Thank you for your time and attention.